Apple will deliver Siri update with iPhone 17 series launch. Apple expected to deliver an improved and completely functioning update of Siri in future. Apple is projected to bring out additional customized Siri capabilities before the 2025 Christmas season. According to the New York Times, 3 persons with knowledge of Apple's intention to deploy a virtual assistant in the fall that can edit and email images to a buddy on request. Apple representative Jacqueline Roy claimed that the firm intends to start deploying its enhanced Siri capabilities in the coming year. Meanwhile, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman stated Apple's AI section feels a true modernized conversational version of Siri won't be available until 2027 at best, owing to issues with development. The Cupertino-based tech company promised a virtual assistant that could learn from users' activities, including emails, conversations, files, and photographs, to give more personalized and contextual replies. Several former workers from Apple's AI and machine learning division singled Walker out to the newspaper as missing the ambition or risk-taking essential to update Siri, adding that the team had been called aimless by internal engineers. Apple Finance chief Luca Mestri allegedly reduced the increase to less than half that, and instead asked the team to make their current processors, 50,000 of which were more than 5 years old, more efficient. To note, Apple is scheduled to unveil iPhone 17 series in September 2025. Gurman stated that the iPhone 17 Pro and iPhone 17 Pro Max models would debut with a considerable overhaul this year. While the delay must have disappointed people, Apple appears determined to giving a polished and completely working update instead of rushing it out incomplete. Next, how will tariffs affect the iPhone 17 price? Here's what the experts say. iPhones aren't built in the US, and that means the tariffs are going to have an effect. Talk of tariffs is omnipresent these days, and it seems like you can't go more than a few minutes without coming across some form of tariff-based conversation. The threat of price rises has been at the center of this conversation, particularly where technology and Apple are involved. Phones are costly, and with tariffs on imports from China exceeding 145% at the time of writing, this may have some people scared. Especially those of you who were hoping for pricey gadgets like the iPhone 17, knowing Apple still builds the overwhelming majority of iPhones in China. While things are still extremely unpredictable and businesses aren't making any concrete pledges as a consequence, it's crucial to realize how things are evolving and what that implies for the future pricing of iPhone 17 and other phones. Here's everything you need to know. At the time of writing, the White House has postponed the bulk of the tariffs that were initially proposed, with the significant exception being China. As Avi Greengart, consumer technology analyst and creator of Texponential, explains me, the fact that tariffs are changing so frequently means that nobody genuinely knows how prices are going to change. I thought for sure Trump was going to end with these firms would be immune from these tariffs since they came and they played ball. So although previously announced duties were put on hold for 90 days, levies on Chinese imports were raised effective immediately to 125% and later 145%. Imports from Mexico and Canada still carry the previous 25% duty, while all other foreign imports will continue to be taxed with a 10% charge, no matter where they originate from. The halt and overall uncertainty implies that prices aren't expected to move up soon. No firm is going to jump the gun and raise pricing on its phones until they really have to. But in the long run, if these tariffs do go into place as stated, we should see the effects of them quite rapidly. While we've subsequently heard allegations that Apple transported 600 tons of merchandise from India to the United States, that supply is fundamentally restricted. Once it's gone and tariffs are in force, then the substitutes will wind up costing more. India assembles roughly 14% of all iPhones and was subject to a 27% tax under the now paused regulations. Carriers might maintain the price to customers the same via a combination of absorbing part of the price rises, improving trade-in values, and extending the term for financing from 2 to 3 years to 3 to 4 years. Greengart was a bit more positive, adding that price rises won't be felt for weeks or up to a couple of months. Both experts cautioned that the real effect of these price hikes may not be that severe for phones. Reith pointed out that phones are special, in that roughly 60 to 70% of phones acquired in the US are on some form of installment plan. So when you're spreading the expense of a $1,000 phone across 2 to 4 years, things aren't as visible. If you add $200 to $1,000 phone, that's 20%. Reith stated. That's a lot of money, but if you spread it out over 36 months, it's not as big of an impact to the customer as the sticker shock. Greengart also pointed out that carriers could keep the price to consumers the same by a combination of absorbing some of the price increases, increasing trade-in valuations, and extend the time frame for financing from 2 to 3 years to 3 to 4 years. So tariffs imply prices might certainly go up, but the way phones are normally really sold in the US means you might not notice any change. Though it would, of course, depend on what type of tariffs phones like the new iPhone 17 are subjected to. Back when the current rounds of tariffs were announced, but before they were delayed, the internet found out that the Trump administration had put tariffs on Heard Island and the McDonald Islands. The islands are noteworthy for being some of the most isolated areas on Earth, with no human presence, and are mostly populated by penguins. Despite the mocking U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick supported the decision. Lutnick said that the charges are meant to avoid ridiculous loopholes that would otherwise enable exports via the islands to enter the U.S. tariff-free. While the thought of shipping via islands that are a 2-week sail from any place else is absurd, it doesn't mean you couldn't reroute supplies to evade the worst charges. As an example of this, Ryan Reith remarked that a business that makes products in Vietnam, which was tariffed by 46%, might possibly reroute their shipments via someplace like Singapore before they fly into the US, since Singapore is only subject to the blanket 10% tariff. You send that to the US, that's not going to sell through with what you expected, Reith said. But if you spend an extra however much money to route through somewhere like Singapore, as an example, it's going to add more time to it and cost. But if you're talking about 10% to 46%, the difference is likely lower than before. Reith also pointed out that although there's been a lot of discussion about nations negotiating better terms with the US, there's nothing prohibiting firms from doing the same thing. I think anything's on the table, Reith said, adding that he was shocked that the Trump administration didn't announce any exclusions with the tariffs. I thought for sure he was going to close with these companies will be exempt from these tariffs, because they came and they played ball, alluding to Apple, Meta, and Nvidia, who had announced hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in American manufacture. But unless we hear it, either from the Trump administration or from a particular exempt corporation, then we shouldn't bet on it occurring. The most apparent approach to get round tariffed items is to purchase domestically. The issue with iPhones and other phones is that there are no American-made alternatives to pick from. Small-scale manufacturing might happen in roughly 3 years, providing all goes according to plan. Mass manufacturing might come in 5 years as a best-case scenario. In fact, even since his first term, President Trump has long advocated the concept that Apple should resume making iPhones in the US, but is it truly possible? The simple answer is no. The lengthy answer is not really, and definitely not anytime soon. Apple may have committed to spend $500 billion to bring both R&D and production to the US, but the notion of creating an iPhone isn't actually something that can be achieved. Reith observed that manufacturing is really a fairly wide phrase, and the degree of success you have in bringing iPhone manufacturing to the US depends on your aims. But whatever occurs, there's no way 100% of iPhone manufacture could happen in the nation. There's no way it would ever make sense, nor could it happen, in my opinion, to have the complete end-to-end solution done in the US. It simply doesn't make sense, Reith said. What they're looking at is factories that produce employment and so on. It's truly about that final assembly. However, Reith observed that this is a time-consuming procedure that can't be done overnight. He thinks that small-scale manufacturing might happen in roughly 3 years, providing all goes according to plan. Mass manufacturing might come in 5 years as a best-case scenario. Greengart informed me that, in the short term, reshoring consumer electronics manufacturing to the US is impossible, even if you could reconstitute complete consumer electronics supply chains in the US. Instead, Greengart said that some assembly could migrate to North America within a median time frame if a free trade zone were formed between the US, Canada, and Mexico, adding that this is similar way many TVs and PC servers are presently built. In the long term, with the right incentive structure, you could reshore electronics to North America, or with an even longer time frame, the US alone, Greengart added. However, he caveated this by noting that such a move would be enormously expensive to build from scratch. Not only would labor be more costly, but the entire process would need more education and training, increasing immigration and massive automation. The US-made gadgets would therefore be more costly than what we have today, but he didn't predict precisely how much more they may cost. Both experts agreed that no matter what occurs, the bulk of components required to create the hypothetical US iPhone would still need to come from Asia, including the likes of China, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. And guess what? Those components would be subject to tariffs under the suggested regulations. Right now, given the way tariff rules have changed so swiftly, it's unknown what this means for the iPhone 17. The price we pay in September will be determined by what tariffs are in place at the time. Apple could negotiate an exception, or the Chinese tariffs may be decreased by the president, in which case it's business as usual. But if everything continues the way it is, and the previously planned tariffs are reinstalled in 3 months' time, then costs will be going up. There's no way around that reality, since it would be difficult for Apple to bring iPhones into the US without paying some form of duty. Thankfully, Apple isn't necessarily going to have to virtually quadruple the pricing due of the 145% Chinese tax. Presumably, some phones will be imported from India, which has a cheaper rate, and others may be redirected via nations that aren't subject to such hefty tariffs. We really can't foresee just how prices will go up right now, or even how much of that cost will be transferred onto the customer. So, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more exciting tech news and updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.